Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. This is Tom O'Connor coming to you from the heart of New Orleans Heritage and Jazz Festival, which is literally right across the street from me right now. So please excuse any awful noises, thumping, screeching, hollering, or loud music you may hear for the next hour. And that's really just coming from Rachi. That's not even the Jazz Fest.
I was very disappointed, Tom, that you didn't we didn't set up a live stream for this interview while the Chili Peppers were playing. That's what we should have done.
So I will have to say, you would have been disappointed. The sound on that stage that afternoon was horrible, horrible. It's been pretty clear. There's been new management at the fest. New teams have come in and sound and sound checks. We were talking about this last night with Dave Glynn, who's in addition to being whatever he is at the Chicago Law Bulletin, is a musician as well.
Right.
And he was talking about how difficult it is to mix sound, especially in an outdoor arena. They're failing that test. So you could probably stream it off the Jazz Fest website though, and I think they fixed the mix. And for all of you who are regular viewers, you know that I'm talking to Rachi Messing, coming to us from Tel Aviv, Israel. Rachi, formerly with Microsoft, but now with he and his brother Shimmy the Wonder Dog, starting a new company called Alterny. And
officially launched.
All right. Is there a website or a blog or a?
There is alterny.com. Look us up on LinkedIn as well. So lots of stuff happening.
Good deal.
But let's get to our guest, because
because usually what we do is talk for 15 minutes before we remember there's another person.
Oh, look, Jay's here. What do you know?
Who's that guy? Who invited him?
There should be a reveal for me. That'd be great.
That's right.
Reveal, I get it.
Ooh, I get it. I like what you did there.
Like that?
You've been talking to Cat Casey again, sneaking that in. We, as you can tell, are really, really happy to have with us Jay Leib, who's and correct me if I get this wrong, Jay is the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at Reveal. That's a mouthful.
Exactly. That's right.
Jay, of course, previous to that was the owner, operator, founder, chief cook and bottle washer at NexLP, a really innovative software company in our space. And I've known you for years. You were at one point, and I'm not sure if this is when I met you or not, you were the chief strategy officer at kCura, which most people now know as Relativity. They changed their name, but you and I spoke on a panel at some point, and it might have been while you were at kCura. It might have been at our fest. I'm not sure. But in any event, Jay, welcome. Great to have you here.
And I go back so much. Jay, much further than that, actually. We're almost at 20 years, Jay. I don't know if you realize that.
I'm shocked that it isn't exactly 20 years.
Yeah. So
well, that kind of segues right into our typical first question here. How did you get into this crazy business? Tell us a little bit about your background and what got you doing this. I know you got a business degree at the University of Notre Dame. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's right.
I'm not sure about your undergrad degree, but I always follow the Irish, of course. And I'm the scourge of my family. I'm the only one of my brothers, sisters, and cousins who did not go to Notre Dame, which my mother reminded me of until her dying breath. You could have gone to Notre Dame.
It's okay, Tom. You've done okay in your life there.
I'm a Subway alum. So yeah.
And there's still time.
That's right.
Don't say. Where did you grow up, Jay? Did you actually grow up in Chicago?
I did. I grew up. I'm one of the few people that actually grew up in Chicago. And when I say grew up in Chicago, I moved from the suburbs of Chicago when I was 13, 14 to downtown. So I've been living downtown Chicago. Matter of fact, I've been living within a 2.5 mile radius of my office for the last, almost 40 years. So,
right. Wow. And as a kid, was that South Side, North Side?
North Side. I'm a Cubbies fan.
All right. Just got to make sure that's clear.
Cubs, Bears, Bulls, and Hawks.
Go Bears.
Sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's right.
Represent.
But I can talk like them if I like. If you want to hear, like,
Yeah,
the bears, or a
the
little
bears,
bark
yeah.
sausage.
There you go. There you go.
Nice.
Dave,
Okay.
Glenn, and
so-
I, after the fest last night, I had ordered a couple of frozen pizzas from, I'll butcher the name, Malnetti's.
Malnati's.
Yeah. So Dave and I were on the porch last night, eating Chicago deep dish pizza. So
Sweet.
There you
Yeah,
go. Jazz
yeah.
Fest and was it Jazz Fest and deep dish pizza? It can't get better than that.
What
Yeah,
could go
bringing
wrong,
the center
right?
of the country all together.
That's right.
So you grew up in Chicago, and then where'd you go to college?
I grew up in Chicago. I went to Columbia College, and
Ah.
of all things, I was actually a film major. I thought I was going to go into film. I did screenwriting, editing, a little bit of directing, but
Wow.
I did computer animation. That's what really got me into computers. Was this is back in like the 90s. When you said the Chili Peppers, I thought you meant the Red Hot Chili Peppers, because that was more of the 90s.
That is what I
You
meant.
did.
Oh, is that what you meant? Oh, Chili
Yeah.
Peppers are playing at Jazz Fest?
They
were.
they were a late minute substitution for the Foo Fighters, who
Oh,
had to cancel after Taylor Hawkins died, and
Yeah.
I guess the drummer for the Peppers and Taylor were good friends. So the
Buddies,
Foo
yeah.
Fighters stepped in and played. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Or
Well,
the Peppers stepped in and played.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense for the Chili Peppers to be playing at Jazz Fest.
Yeah.
Well, talking about going back way back, my first Lollapalooza was in '92,
There you
and
go.
the headliner was Chili Peppers, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. That was the headliner. Now the small site. Now back when Lollapalooza back in the '90s, it was in a small. It was like toured around the country, but this one was in a small city in Wisconsin. And like the smallest, and one of the small, like they're like side stage bands was Pearl Jam. That was like a small,
Right.
Side band. Maybe these guys might have something.
Up and coming act.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Ice Cube was another kind of
Was
small
nice.
band. It was another small band there.
Really?
Oh yeah, and it was probably more well known, less for the music than for what was known as the Jim Rose Freak Show or Freak Circus. So during the
What was that?
music, there would be this side stage where it was almost like the like that Jackass MTV show, where these guys would do all sorts of crazy things, where they would put like a nail through their tongue, or they would sledgehammer their hands, or all sorts of different things. So this Jim Rose
Sounds like
Freak
Tuesday
Show,
night in
yeah.
New Orleans to me. I don't know. What's
That's right. So that was Lollapalooza. Now all these music festivals become much more corporate than that.
Oh yeah, it's a big.
That's like
deal.
I went to Metallica put on a 2-day festival in Atlantic City a bunch of years ago, and each member got to pick 2 kind of like sideshows to go on. Like one of them's into like classic cars, so he had like a classic car museum in the festival, and one was into like horror films and haunted houses, so he like just created a haunted house in the it gives meaning to the festival. It's not just about the music. I mean,
These are
it's
the
mostly
members
about
of the band.
members of the band did it, yeah. So it was pretty awesome, and they each picked what other bands were going to play in the festival, so because it was their festival, but
Right.
but they each picked which actually added like total variety to the entire thing. I mean, you had everything from like death metal to country rock to
Yeah.
like just like
Perfect
across the board. I
Peter,
think they
Paul,
had-
and Mary. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Wow.
So,
No, enough about us
so-
again.
so
Dave,
besides heading to Lollapalooza, what else were you up to in the 90s?
yeah.
Very angsty.
Do you remember? Yeah, do you remember?
Very angsty. A lot of flannel, a lot of black combat boots I
Yeah.
wore. Very angsty. I had very long. I had hair almost as long as Tom's.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
A ponytail almost as big.
We're gonna need to see pictures, Jay.
Yeah, we're gonna need some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And I
problem.
want to see metadata on those pictures.
Yeah.
No Johnny Depp. No Johnny
That's
Depp.
right. The problem is that with my hair, I always wanted to grow out long hair and have rock star hair, but unfortunately, with my curly hair, that the more I
went
grew
out.
it, yeah, it was like it would grow out. So when I put it in a ponytail, unlike Tom, I would look like George Washington almost. I was like crossing the Delaware. It was just this big thing. So it lasted just through college.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I got into computers through computer animation. Right after college, I did a lot with like kind of graphic design, designing like logos and a lot of screensavers. It was back in the 90s. Those flying toasters were popular.
I was going to say, that's the first thing that came into my mind was flying toasters.
Yeah, the flying toasters were big.
I just the Star Wars effect was mine.
Right.
Star Wars
Stare at
that's
that
right.
days, yeah.
Yeah. So companies, for trade shows as a giveaway would maybe give away like a CD-ROM or something that would have like their logo as a screensaver. And so I'd help design that and kind of package it up. And midway through that, this is the 90s, I saw an ad for a company looking for, and that was kind of my own company. I saw an ad for a company that was looking for someone to like work on databases and on software. And so I went and interviewed with them, and it was in Chicago. It was a company called RTI, and they were, scanning paper. And I'm like, why are you scanning paper? And I'm like, why are we doing this? And there was like pallets and pallets and pallets and pallets of paper. And this was probably 97, I want to say. Okay. And so I accepted a job as like the head of their databases and software. And it was great. Actually, it was a lot of great talent came out of this company, RTI. Eventually, we got acquired by Bound, but Bound had owned like JFS Litigator's Notebook, and a lot of great talent came out of that group.
That's a great. Excuse me for interrupting, but I can't help myself. Do you ever talk to Jay Feuerstein?
It's funny. I kept in contact with him for a while. I'm still connected with him on LinkedIn. He's in San Antonio, but him and Jane Generali. I used to keep in touch with him quite a bit, actually.
Okay, because he had some links with the Summation crowd in those days when I was with them, and he was a great guy. Liked him.
He posts on LinkedIn quite a bit. There's if you want to know anything about politics in San Antonio, it seems like he's posting it on LinkedIn.
That's his thing.
So who else came out of there?
Let's see. So folks that now started up what's now a Haystack. Folks that that are at FT. Trying to think of like specific people that everyone would know. Folks that are at FTI. Folks that are at EY. Folks that are at trying to think of all the different talent.
So people have done well for themselves.
That's quite a pedigree,
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. It was because it was like Chicago, and there wasn't many. So they were kind of like the only really independent group, this RTI at the time. In scanning coding. So I took the job, and two things came out of it. One was I worked. Tom, you mentioned summation, so I worked quite a bit with summation and concordance. So that was kind of my job. I had two different jobs. One was working with this on the scanning software side of the house. So we were using at the time iPro. So we were scanning with iPro software and scanning 3 shifts. So 3 shifts during the night, morning, noon, and night. And then we also had bibliographic coding in the heart of Chicago. So this is all in Chicago, bibliographic coding and OCR and all that. And then so I'd help with the iPro software, the scanning software. Then I'd also help clients. We'd actually resell iPro software. So I'd help train people up and give them like workflows on how to scan paper. So I travel all over the country for different law firms to say, hey, this is how you put a slip sheet into boxes of paper.
Right.
And did Bound buy Neil Oresti's company, LextraNet? Was that
Merrill did.
Merrill.
Yeah, it was Merrill.
Okay.
Yeah, Rocky should know a little bit about that one, but yeah.
Yeah. Can't tell the players without a scorecard.
Yeah. And from what I understand, LextraNet still is still around. Still around.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's
good software never dies, something like
that's
that.
Right.
No, I think he was way ahead of his time with that. Neil is I still talk to Neil on a regular basis. He's a great guy. We'll have Neil.
Well, the JFS litigator's notebook, we mentioned that was way ahead of its time as
That was
well.
way ahead of its time. Yes,
way ahead.
absolutely.
That
was a great product as well.
That was built on Lotus Notes, so
Yeah.
that had a little bit of overhead with it. But I spent a lot of time with
little bit.
yeah. So I spent a lot of time with summation and actually concordance. Back in when I had to get trained up in concordance, this is way back when, they were above a pizza place in California. I want to say Beverly Hills or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And in my class of it was like 7 people or so. I believe it was like Ian Campbell was in there, who now founded iConnect.
Right.
I think I want to say Chris Cruz was in that class too. I want to say, who started up Case Central,
Yeah.
or he was somewhere around there at that time. So a lot, really small operation, concordance, and and that was kind of spending a little bit of time with them, spending a little time with summation, actually gave me my first background on software companies actually in the space.
Yeah.
Of how they operated, how they worked. I'd been on services and doing my own kind of graphic design, so I really hadn't spent much time with professional software companies until spending time with both
professional.
Professional.
That might be pushing it.
Yeah.
Well, you saw that Summation, believe it or not, Summation, they're out of San Francisco, and it was kind of like kind of not pre-Silicon Valley, obviously, but it was pre-internet, right? And so you had a lot of technical, really smart people at Summation. You had Jeff Lipsman at Concordance, really smart guy, really passionate
Summation
people.
also was interesting because they had a couple of lawyers, were
That's
two
right.
or
John
three
Sigmund.
founders.
That's right.
So
John
you
Sigmund,
had that good. You had that good mix of legal knowledge and technical knowledge. Yeah.
When I went for my summation training, there was this weird guy there named Tom O'Connor.
Oh man,
very strange.
There was some horror stories about that guy. I don't know how you got through that class, man.
Whew, that was rough. But so concordance summation, I mean, that was it in the day. I mean, everyone had it.
Right.
And even today, I mean, you'd be amazed at how many people still are running, a couple licenses in-house in the law firms.
Well, Jay, I'm sure you come across it, especially in the government sector, state level government, where they bought that and the bidding process.
Perpetual license.
2 decades to change the, it's like turning the aircraft carrier. To get them changed, and they like it. They're set in their ways and they like it. Yeah.
Yeah. But then came the DocuLex days, right?
Yeah. So around 99, 2000, and I've told this story a few different times, but I'll share again, which is it wasn't small. We had a floor of this scanning company, and this is kind of pre-Bound. It was right before Bound. We'd won a part of this Microsoft. Microsoft was being sued for monopolistic behavior, both by the government as well as in a class action. And I was walking through the scanning center, and I was blown away. One of our great sales guys had won this project, and I saw Bill Gates' emails printed out to paper, and I saw that from paper his emails being scanned back to a digital format, right? Then then I walked through. I mean, this is 99. And email wasn't obviously as popular as it is now, or as ubiquitous as it is now. And then, I was walking through and they were doing OCR on the images. And then what blew me away even more is, back in the day, we did bibliographic coding to build an index of your data. So people were literally rekeying in from Bill Gates to Steve Ballmer, and, subject line, et cetera. They're rekeying that in. And that was an aha moment for me that, hey, there's this digital revolution. And what we were doing is we were treating everything like the old paradigm, this paper paradigm. And so I went on a trip. It was 1999, Y2K. And I went on a trip to South America with a friend of mine who was an attorney at the time at the SEC. And I said, hey man, if we survive this trip, Y2K, if the lights come back up, we're supposed to leave. I think we left mid-December. We hiked the Patagonia, et cetera. And we're supposed to come back on January 1st, 2000 from Santiago, Chile. So we're supposed to fly back. And I said, if we fly back, if we make it, We have to quit our jobs. There's this revolution coming. I think I could develop a piece of software that can go, not, instead of going from digital, printed out to analog, back to digital, I think I can move.
And forget about printing it back again.
Print,
Yeah,
yeah,
and then
the blowbacks and everything else. That's right. It's like,
Copy,
actually,
label, copy.
Yeah, it's actually the number one requested feature of all time of Discovery Cracker is print outs, blowbacks. Never finished that one. Never finished that feature. I don't think. So so we survived the plane trip. Obviously, we landed, and I was all prepped to quit my job. I came into work on whatever that was, Monday or Tuesday, and we had just got and literally we had got acquired by Bound. And I said to my boss, I said, he called me in his office, and I was ready to tell him my news, and he told me his news that we were acquired by Bound while I was out, hiking the Patagonia. And I said, oh, well, that's great for you, congratulations. I said, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to start a company to focus on this new thing, electronic mail, electronic files, and getting it into databases. And he said, well, I already have you on the org chart, so you can't quit. And we worked out you can't quit. And you're going to need some money, et cetera. Startups are hard. Why don't you, what if I rent you this back room and you still do some work for us? And so we rented this back room. It was almost like a closet in the office, which was, to this, that was actually, if it wasn't for that, I don't know what happened. We did, and two good things actually happened. One is that we were able to get a little bit of work from them, so we were able to pay some bills during that time. But two is that we actually, to speak of Summation, John Siegerman, who is the CEO and founder of Summation, said, "Hey, Jay, I heard you're trying to get into this electronic files thing. Do you think you can write something that can go into Summation?" And I said, "Yeah, I think we can." And so we wrote a little piece of software called eLoader Lite that got packaged into Summation.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it wasn't very lucrative. I'm probably still contractually not allowed to say anything, but it wasn't very lucrative. But the key to it was they included our logo. And I thought that was the coolest thing, is that it had our logo and a link to our logo to a really rudimentary website for our software company. And from that moment, was really transformational for me in my career, because people would click on that link, see our website, because they'd have these massive emails and wouldn't know what to do with it. And they would, and they started posting on the Yahoo Lit Sport board, if people remember that. And once they started posting on that board and knowing our name, then people started knowing about us and asking us. And so that's when our software company it was actually called Advocate Solutions, headquartered in Chicago, but everyone knows it by the product name, which was Discovery Cracker.
Right.
And Discovery Cracker, was I guess kind of one of the first, if not the first, eDiscovery programs that took emails, electronic files, attachments, and we didn't even know how to spell dedupe back then, right? Right.
With a dash, without a dash.
Yeah, with it. No, yeah. Exactly. It was a capital D, E, capital D, oop,
Right.
Was it the dash? In fact, Norman Yee from Celerity is the one that called us up, and he's like, hey, do you think you can, if you have two emails that are exactly the same, do you think you can maybe not? I think, are you talking maybe a dedupe? And that's kind of how it came to be. Right. So that was Discovery Cracker, and that was in 2000 to 2003, and then we got acquired by Doculex, and Doculex, ironically, was a very big competitor of iPro.
Right.
Most of my career, I've been an iPro person. Right. Yeah, iPro shop, and so we got acquired by Doculex, which was number one, and Hatfield and McCoy of the scanning world at that time.
Yep.
So you got, and
that's where I met you.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
I was going to say that's where I met you, because at that point, I was working at a shop in Houston, and we had a project actually for someone I know you just had lunch with, and we needed 200. We basically had to go through, at the time, it was massive amounts of data. I think it was the largest Doculex and Cracker project that had gone on at the time, and we had 200 machines working concurrently, and wow. It was for back then, it was quite an impressive operation. So yeah, that was fun. Good times.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of great, people and great folks in this industry today, kind of came, interacted with myself or Discovery Cracker back in that time. So not only did I have this messing, but I believe I pitched to Shimmy, your brother, at in Boston at the time. I want to say, right? At Merrill,
Well,
was he in Boston?
So he was working for Merrill in DC, but he was known as like the smart guy who went everywhere. So,
yeah. I think I saw him in Boston, and he wasn't really that impressed. I gotta be honest, but
it's hard to impress him.
Yeah, he wasn't really impressed. Maybe for some of these big,
Yeah. Okay, so I'm really curious how you started NexLP. I know we're skipping forward a little bit here, but how did you go from what you're talking about, from that world into like hardcore?
Yeah. Well, so even back in the Cracker days, we really didn't. We were one small piece of the entire value chain, right? You had to scan things or use Cracker. Then there was that whole other world, right? And so Shimmy's or Rocky's project you just mentioned, back then, like cases like Enron and all these different cases, you're talking anywhere from like, $10,000 per gig to process. I mean, like literally, right? So it was really, it was very, very expensive, right?
Whereas some people we know very well who will go unnamed like to refer to it as the good old days.
The good old days, right? The salad days, right? Yes. And so that's right. So I spent about 4 years in total with Doculex and learned a lot there. And then I went and joined a couple different large consulting companies, including like EY. And where worked on some of the largest projects in the world. But during that time at EY, we brought in a small piece of software, or it was a small piece of software from a smaller company known as kCura. We brought in Relativity, and they're based in Chicago. I have a software background, and so I joined kCura, now known as Relativity, as a chief strategy officer. We had, they were a small company at the time. And the model for Relativity was really the amount of users, right? And to this day I think it has to do with a lot of the users. And during this time so this is 2010, I want to say I joined Relativity, right? So if you think again, starting in let's say 2001, $10, $15, $20,000 per gig for processing, to what the pricing had already come down dramatically by 2010. Why? Because of exponential growth of data, right? And from 2008, where financial crisis, through 2010, we had law firms wanted to be able to share resources across offices, right? That's why the rise of the internet and why Relativity with enterprise type of class software would allow them to people on the bench in San Francisco be able to work with a group in New York, right? So allowed for that. So now we're throwing a lot of people at this data, and data continued to go up and up and up and up with all the electronic data that was out there. And so the pricing kept going down and down. So while I was at Relativity, we were already working with kind of an analytics package, and I thought, well, hey, what if we kept going, pushing to the next step, and we released a product called Relativity Assisted Review, which was, and that was a great step forward, I think, for the industry. But I thought we can go even further. And I thought we can go even further with kind of artificial intelligence of things we can do with it. And so at that
congratulations, Jay. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You just won the award for going the most amount of time during an interview without using the phrase AI.
AI. Okay.
Yes.
Well, good. Well, it's funny you say that, because when we started NexLP, so anyways, the data keeps going up, right? Prices are coming down, but the number of people keep exponentially. The number of attorneys and lawyers and investigators and knowledge workers is going up exponentially. And I thought, man, we can't we even attack these even further, right? We've, technology's put us in this jackpot where we need to use human beings, right? The price going down is not, because of altruism, but it's because of, there's just so much data, just basic, just basic economics there.
Right.
So,
and at this point, I'd say probably the market rate was probably about between 100 and 150 bucks already in 2000.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, some people were packaging it together and bundling and doing all sorts of things, right?
Right.
So, I became very friendly and worked with a man by the name of Dr. Dan Roth, who at the time was the head of AI at I think it was the Cognitive Computing Lab at University of Illinois Champaign.
Yeah.
And we talked, and so we decided to launch a company using his technology. And I brought in some other colleagues that I've worked with over the years to join me and to be founders on this venture. But that was the funny thing I was going to mention was that AI had been actually a failed term back in the 70s.
Yep.
Artificial intelligence. In fact, IBM never used the term AI anymore. When we talk about Watson and everything, if you look at it, was the cognitive computing, right? Because AI was promising to do things that turned out to be like fuzzy logic, and those types of things. And so it was failed. So no one used AI. So when I launched NexLP in 2014, we if you look even my old website, if you go on if you look at Time Machine on the Wayback Machine on my website, I think we said cognitive computing. We didn't say anything about AI because it really was a poor term. But I definitely made a distinction, because I think there is a definite distinction between text analytics and cognitive computing, or now what we're all referring to as AI. Yeah. And so that's what we focused on.
And I remember when when I was in Chicago, I think it was probably the week you left Relativity. And I think we had a meeting on the books, and we met anyway because you were like, yeah, let's just meet. And I was like, okay, but why am I getting a bounce back on your email? Yeah. And I texted you, and we met at a coffee shop or something. You were telling me about the idea, and it was really amazing, the thoughts around how do we tell a story, right? That was your focus at the time. Was
that's right.
How do we actually tell a story from the data, right? And it was for all of the stuff that was going on in terms of analytics and in terms of slashing through the data and cutting in all different ways and slicing and dicing. People had forgotten that the concept here was really that the attorneys really need, and that what they're really trying to get to is the narrative. And how do we tell a story from the data, and how do we actually learn from the data?
Yep.
Because data is just data. I can keyword search it, I can do whatever I want, but if it's not going to actually tell me what's really going on, it's worthless. Yeah. And that was just a fascinating conversation. And,
I agree. I thought that was to me, the thing that attracted me to NexLP immediately was, okay, we've got all these tools, analytics, there were a million tools out at that point, but this was a tool with an instruction manual, how to use it to build the house that I need to build. Like Rachi said, to tell the story. You can't just give attorneys a technical tool. The thing I always say with my clients is, what do you want to do here? What is it you're trying to do? Right. And then we'll figure out a way to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
No, right. Well, thanks for the kind words. No, I appreciate that. As a quick aside, when we launched Discovery Cracker in 2000, I think 2001 was our first legal tech with Cracker being shown, and we were on the third floor of legal tech, it was us. Then it was the coffee maker machines, right. But
the water cooler.
And two funny things. One is that every other booth was a scanning machine, and so we were 3 deep, where we were giving demos, and no one had ever seen anything like this. But across the hall from me, not even across the hall from me, across the aisle from me was a small little company that out of Israel that was known as Equivio, and they were showing this near duplicate technology. And then there was a company, I think down down, like 2 or 3 booths down, called SCR, which then I think was the forerunner of what became like Recommind at the kind of the precursor to Recommind as well. So we're all kind of in the same, Byzantine kind of weird spot in legal tech. And so my point is that there was a lot of groups doing, or not, I shouldn't say there was good established companies like Equivio doing some great work in this space of document comparison and classification, etc. There was groups like my company, like part of my portfolio of Reveal companies now, BrainSpace, doing phenomenal work in clustering and visual analytics. But there really wasn't anyone kind of utilizing kind of entities and natural language processing. So NexLP stood for next generation language processing, or natural language processing. And what we tried to focus on was, can we extract these elements directly from the documents, people, place, things, and start to kind of go outside the 4 corners of the document? Can we detect when people are discussing things that they're angry about, or there's a negative event? Can we detect since we're taking all this information and we're from unstructured data, can we find patterns in that data and be able to serve that up to the attorneys as well? So that was the kind of the genesis, and the idea for NexLP was really focused on those types of things.
Great.
So let's jump forward again a little bit. So then Reveal approaches you guys, and you saw a great fit there. So right now, in your position now, what does your day look like? Like, are you still actively involved in the NexLP side of things? Is it really just now that it's been integrated into the platform? Is it all one? Where do things sit right now?
Yeah. So, well, first thing, for any software entrepreneurs out there, any entrepreneurs in general, we'd actually been partners with Reveal for about 18 months or so, and that's kind of the playbook. Like for instance, when Doculex acquired Discovery Cracker, we've been partners with them for about a year or so. So, partnering with a potentially a strategic acquirer is a great tactical strategy, because then you prove up business value on both sides. It's like dating. You find out if you like each other before you get married, right? So so we were dating for about a year and a half. They were based in Chicago. The founder and CEO, Wendell Giza, I like very much. And so so Reveal said, hey, why don't we combine? Why don't it make so much more sense to have your software directly embedded into Reveal, into the review platform? And yes, absolutely. So that's your question. We still have, we've kind of rebranded NexLP to be known as Reveal AI. So we still have Reveal AI as a standalone, and we just like we less than 6 months later or 7 months later, we acquired and rolled up and merged with BrainSpace. So BrainSpace is the world's best visual analytics and technology in our space with machine learning and everything else. So we did that. That still remains as a standalone, but what really is our company's a focus is really fulfilling this vision of bringing all this AI technology and portfolio of technologies into one kind of seamless platform. And so that's really been the focus of our company over the last year or so. And so my day-to-day is really just talking to customers and talking to the industry, saying both evangelizing what we're doing, as well as eliciting feedback and saying, hey, what's next? Where's the puck going, and how can Reveal, how can Reveal's portfolio of technologies really assist in that area?
Right. What do the clients need that they don't even realize that they need? That's
the gaps.
Yeah.
Cool.
So cool. Awesome. And how long ago was that acquisition?
So we got acquired in August of 2020. And then BrainSpace, I think, was merged with Reveal. That's why we call it Reveal. We call it Reveal, but Reveal BrainSpace in our logo. In January of 2021. So relatively new. And so we're about to release our Reveal 11 product, which is going to have all of the Reveal AI, formerly NexLP technologies, all of the BrainSpace technologies completely embedded into the DNA of the product. So it's a complete like reimagining of the review experience through this lens of AI. So it's not like you jump out to
Add-on or
yeah,
right.
it's not an add-on or plug-in or jump. It's all embedded. And it's really, it goes back to that original vision of how can we combat, the exponential growth of human beings in the review mix, right? How
So,
can we combat that and help them more?
Jay, you're the guy I like to ask this question, and you're, I think, uniquely situated to answer this. This is great. Rachi and I are all on board this, but every time we go to a conference, every time I read a survey, I'm sure see this, we still have an enormous amount of resistance to technology from lawyers. Keyword search is still king. Why? Why? I feel like CeeLo Green. Why? What are we doing wrong? I always think, if the students aren't learning, I think it was John Wooden said it, then I'm not teaching right. What are we doing wrong?
Well, I think
how do we change that?
Yeah, so I think again, I'm speculating on why. It used to be with when it was eDiscovery, you'd have law firms say, oh, we don't, we only do that on the big cases, right? And then and with AI or classification, they'll say, oh, we'll only do it on the big cases.
Right.
Yeah, now we
I
only do it. Yeah. I think the big issue was actually the friction in the technology, meaning that folks, as we just mentioned, they'd have to kind of link out or jump out and do something separate for that process. They would go and use a NexLP or a BrainSpace or an Equivio or whatnot. They'd kind of jump out to it. So I think the key to adoption, one, is like anything. I'm using AI, on my iPhone. I'm using AI in my mail with my virus checker. I don't even know, right? So that's kind of been our design ethos here with Reveal 11 is how can we embed all these technologies and have the patient not even know that they're being treated this way. So so I think that's the key, Tom, is that when you start to make people change their process, that's when you lose that adoption, right? Because then so here we're trying to make it as my colleague here.
Look over here while we slide it in.
I was going to say, basically, you're saying we got to learn how to trick them.
Well, invisible, right? Invisible AI. I mean, it should be just behind the scenes. Why should anyone?
Transparent. I like that. I like that.
Or frictionless, as we like to say.
It's too much.
Right?
I like that.
If they're reluctant to use technology, to tell them they're using 4 technologies, I got to do this and then move it here and then do this. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Not to mention just on the IT side, the resources and as the data, as you said, gets enormous, moving stuff around becomes problematic. Yeah, that's a great point. Great point. Because it's a series of frustrations to us. We see this all the time. Yeah. This is really good for you. This will help you. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we are going to have to wrap up. But before we do, got a couple quick questions. Typically, one word answers will suffice unless you really feel like you need to expand on them. The first one that I typically ask, I have a feeling I know where you'll go, but I will be pleasantly surprised if you don't. Chicago or New York style pizza?
Chicago, deep dish all the way. Not even a question. In fact, hey, every New Yorker folds their pizza. Why? Because they want deep dish. That's my theory.
I like that. High school, awesome or terrible?
Oh, terrible. Absolutely terrible.
We'll have to get back to that one on a different chat. Okay, and then this one, you'll probably need a couple more words for it, but thinking back to your younger self, what's one piece of advice that you give yourself?
Ooh, good question. So I'd probably say, believe it or not, I'd probably tell myself to take more chances, believe it or not.
More chances.
Yeah, even though I've been, I've been involved with a number of startups of my own, I probably, played it safe a few different times when I probably could have pushed a little bit further. So I probably told myself take some more chances and eat more vegetables. Those are probably the two things.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
You listen to your mom, right?
That's right.
Okay, Tom, why don't you take us out with a final question or two?
Well, I've got a short question first, Jay. Beatles or Stones?
Oh, that's a tough, man. That's a killer one. I plead the fifth on that one. I can't do
No,
it.
not allowed.
I can't do it.
No.
Ooh, because
because this is
I would,
either Tom wins or I win, so it's
Gotcha.
important here.
It would be the breadth of catalog is definitely in the Beatles, right? For from all the hits, but the Stones have like 2 or 3 songs they're just absolutely that I absolutely love. So I would say the Beatles. If given this requirement, the Beatles.
Yes. Another
Wrong
win.
answer. Wrong answer.
Hey man,
You are no longer
Like
invited to join
recording.
us, unfortunately.
if you ask me like what song that I sing in the shower,
Oh, that's a good one. We should ask.
definitely
them.
definitely the Stones.
Best rock and roll song ever.
Oh man, that's a tough one too.
What's the one you sing in the shower?
Oh well, from the Stones, can't always get what you want. I mean,
All right, there we go. Good answer.
Yeah.
So our last question is one, of course, we ask everyone, and that is, if you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, living or dead, and you wouldn't have to be doing something that's profession related, who would that person be, and what would you do?
well, oh man, that would be that's a tough one too. And we have so many great people, people near and dear to your heart, Tom, on many different levels. So I would probably say Abraham Lincoln. He was a lawyer in Illinois. I'm sure that he would have loved to look at statistics and look at analytics, and I think he'd be fantastic with he was a trial attorney, but I'm sure he would love what we're doing on the discovery side of the house. So I would have to go with Abraham Lincoln on that one.
I like
all right.
it.
Great
I like
answer.
it. Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have right now. Rocky has to get off to more Independence Day festivities in Israel.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for having me on.
Yeah. So we
This
both
is
got
a lot of
very
fun.
important things to do.
Yes.
Jay, thanks so much for your time. Great seeing you.
Thank you, guys.
Hope to see you in
Thanks for
person
catching
again
up.
sometime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you get just a little bit of advice if you don't mind. Maybe let's get how about a background, guys? How about like a branded background,
that's
right?
Too formal. Come on.
I had my stage shot of the Stones, but Rocky vetoed it. It was.
I mean, come on, guys. Let's class it up a little bit. All right.
Oh no, the background is one thing.
You're asking a lot. Come on, Jay.
Jay, thanks,
Awesome.
Really
Thanks so much, guys.
Always a pleasure. And
Yeah.
folks, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the eDiscovery channel.